We're here today with Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb, who is just back from speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos and is squeezing us in before he kicks off the Global Economic Summit in Indiana tomorrow. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be with you.
So starting with your recent trip, is there something that struck you during your conversation at Davos, maybe a key theme that you found many of the world's economic leaders discussing?
Yes, I think there was a thread throughout not just my panel that I participated on, but in conversations that I had and other meetings that I had, albeit it was only 24 hours, that you could easily fill your dance card with 70 meetings in 4 days, sleep very little. The level of decision makers that are present is impressive, and therefore you can be very efficient. And so you probably, in hindsight, for me, now I had to get back because we had a couple very important days, and I would have swam home if my flight was delayed. But you could probably save yourself a lot of travel just by going there for 2 days or 3 days or 4 days. And then to hear so many different perspectives from civil society, from, diplomats or elected officials, CEOs of Fortune, 500, Fortune 100, Fortune 5, type companies, discussing what is impacting adversely or in a positive way, impacting their business. And I think the common thread was with a crisis over here and a crisis over there, it's an interesting intersection of world events, and they may be a short-term crisis, but you have to have a long-term view to get through them. And so it's everyone is trying to figure out, the effect of war, or the effect of inflation, or the effect of drought, or the effect of, and then what to actually do about it. And we find ourselves with very lofty, I'm speaking globally here, very lofty goals. And that's good. We need to have goals. We need to have a plan to realize those goals. I said in my panel, we need to have a plan, implement the plan, measure the results, can't be rhetorical, measure, and then be very transparent about it. Sunshine is good to let in and expose. And if something doesn't work, so be it. Tweak it, like we, see these Indy cars getting tweaked every lap, and tweak it and try to make the plan or your strategy better. And so that was kind of the common thread, was maybe a short-term problem or challenge. How short is short? That can be relative. And then what is a long-term plan? So as an example, and I'll quit filibustering here. As an example, one nation had very lofty goals. We were making a lot of progress on our sources of energy, and we've basically had to scrap that temporarily to be able to keep the lights on. And in this case, go back to fossil fuel. And it was, maybe they didn't use this word, but maybe with a little regret that they had to go back to a source that wasn't preferred, but they have to keep the lights on and the refrigerator working, and the system has to still remain running even during this short time. And so how can we get to the finish line as efficiently and safely and as clean as possible on these events that may be occurring in a country but affect the world?
Mm-hmm. And obviously the war in Ukraine is much closer to Switzerland than to the US. Did it feel like that was the predominant concern, or do you think maybe energy or inflation were more important matters at this summit?
What I picked up, again, I was there, one day, most people were there 3 or 4. What I picked up was there was no one issue. And I think they were trying to, most people were trying to stress that some of these issues, we can't take our eye off the ball. I mean, absolutely the war in and on Ukraine, Putin's own doing, is of chief concern right now because of the ripple effect that it's having. And it's horrific, the lives that are lost in Ukraine. But just because America's very far away doesn't mean America is immune to what is happening there and how it affects the market. And right now, with the world getting smaller and smaller and smaller because it's more and more connected, remote has kind of taken on a different definition, and things aren't so remote anymore. And so no, I don't think that the Russian aggression was the only predominant theme, but it was mentioned. But to your point, it was part of how it too is affecting inflation, or how it too is affecting the markets, how the stock exchange, and how it's affecting food insecurity or security. And so, yeah, it is a factor, but they would say there are 9 other factors as well that we cannot take our eye off the ball because of this, hopefully, and this is a relative term, hopefully a short-term crisis.
And so that's dealing with the global economy, but locally, you've seen Indiana rebound pretty strongly after the pandemic. Indiana had the 5th highest real GDP growth among US states in 2021. What do you think enabled this strong recovery?
Well, I don't think there's any shortcut. I think what served us, or has served us well, is we have, generally speaking, offered continuity and stability and predictability. Continuity for sure, going back to about 2005 when we turned the ship of state around and got moving in the right direction. We've always lived within our means. We've always been mindful of fixing the roof when the sun's shining, not trying to do it when it's raining. And so we've, even last year and this year, we're paying down debt. We're about to pay down another $2.5 billion in a teacher's pension fund. And we're paying that off. That's really we were already a low debt state. And just since I've been in office, we've paid down about 24% of our very low debt. And so we don't say, oh, that's okay, that's not that much. We're going to continue to pay down debt, responsibly, methodically adjust our tax rates. We're already a low tax state. And, when you're best in the Midwest and top 10 or top 5 in virtually every meaningful economic category, we don't want to be 4th. We want to be 3rd, and then 2nd, and then 1. And so we're constantly trying to improve the state of our economy, even while it is, as I like to say, humming like an Indy car. I mean, it is roaring, and our engine continues to grow. We'll have another strong month. May is almost up. In April, we were $500 million over the projection, and we're already about, year to date, we're already about 850 million over the forecast. And that puts us in another, that's because of what you say. We've added about 100 billion in the last 5 years to our GDP. And I think it's because we offer that certainty and predictability. We're a safe place for an entrepreneur to risk capital. And we're a place that allows a business to grow at the speed that they determine, not, the factors of the state aren't working against you. And we're very, we just had an announcement today from Eli Lilly and Company that is a $2.5 billion investment, 500 new jobs, careers. Yesterday, we had a $2.5 today was 2.1, yesterday was 2.5 billion. So, and that was Stellantis and Samsung SDI yesterday. So, you know, we're knocking on the door. Monday, we had a $350 million investment up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So we're at 5 billion in 72 hours. And I think the international engagement and the homegrown businesses, that combination is kind of feeding off itself. And we live in this world where clusters matter. And so ecosystems, another way to say it, they matter. And we're not only ready to help a local community and partner with them, but we're also ready and willing to partner and do with the business itself. And so we're seeing a lot more ecosystem development, not just economic development, not just a one-off. And we're going straight for quality and over quantity. And and this has been a slow shift from we want it all. And we are very polite. Anybody that wants to come here and set up shop, come on. But if you're looking for performance-based incentives, we're going after quality. And so we're going to say, are you paying more than the county average? Are you paying more than the state average? Are you paying more than the national average? Okay, you are, let's talk. Because we're trying to lift opportunity for people who aspire social upward mobility.
And so you've got this global economic summit coming up in the next few days, obviously tomorrow
morning,
bright and early.
Yes.
Obviously part of that is, you know, going to be a bit of a victory lap for the success, but you were talking about constantly wanting to improve. What do you think are some of the things at this conference that you're going to be looking for, not necessarily solutions to problems, but ways to tweak what you're doing and continue improving?
Absolutely. And that's a big part of kind of the reason why we said it was almost why not host a global economic summit in Indiana. We are a very international, a global state. And why not host our international partners here in the heartland, where so much innovation is developed and so much innovation is put into practical play. And so we were very, it's exceeded our expectations by the number. We have 30 nations coming together here. I think it's the most since the Pan Am Games in 1987 that came to Indianapolis, but we have 30 nations and 80 participants and attendees, and then CEO level area experts in their area talking about, like you said, solutions, but learning from one another on how to tweak what you're already doing, because that development is already out there somewhere. It could be in Africa, it could be in Europe, it could be in Asia. We have 6 different continents represented in this at this summit. And what I will be looking for specifically are ways, and it's what I spoke on in Davos, are ways that we can make sure that our educational and training ecosystem can be perfected. That's what we'll strive for, can be perfected to the point where the state of Indiana is more of a concierge than a government bureaucrat at worst. But, you know, a concierge that says, what do you need to grow in terms of skill and talent and experience? And then we will help as a state, not just recruit people from all over the world or all over the country to come to our state and fill those positions, but we'll also groom them from kindergarten through happy retirement, quite frankly, lifelong learning. And I'll be really focused on the creative, kind of bold, corporate sector solutions to attracting talent. And there are a lot out there, but I'll be excited because we're having this discussion at a time of such transition. So I'll also be very interested when we're talking about hydrogen, and when we're talking about the future of fleets in trucking, when we're talking about the transition of to electric and the digital transformation that's been occurring for years, but is just accelerating into every sector, quite frankly, whether it be logistics or manufacturing or hospitality, you name it. I mean, if you're not introducing technology advancements, your lunch is getting eaten and you may not even know it. And so I'll be from a government perspective, you know, I want our customers, citizens, taxpayers, to have high satisfaction with what we're doing. And so I'm always trying to listen to see what the private sector is doing, because they're responding to the market's voice, which is very powerful and persuasive. And ignoring that is at your own peril. And I think if more politicians or elected officials held themselves to that standard, we'd be much better off, and being able to talk about, being able to work toward results. Again, not rhetoric or bumper sticker slogans.
Yeah. And I want to talk about some of those innovations in a second, but I do want to ask if you have a favorite driver at the Indy 500, someone you're rooting for.
I do. I have multiple favorites. Let me say that. This is hard for a guy from Indiana. And I grew up in the shadow of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, literally in a town called Claremont, which is just west of Speedway. So, and I have, you know, I adore the Andretti's, and Chip Ganassi is incredible. And, you know, the drivers that I grew up revering are all pretty special to me. Just a lot of memories. However, having said that, you asked, Joseph Newgarden is my favorite driver. And it actually is because, not because he races for Team Penske, who Roger Penske has, it is a godsend that he was able to really step in and kind of save the day ultimately. And there are very few people on planet Earth that this place is spiritual to him. And we're very fortunate that someone who loves the sport and has a kind of fan-centric perspective on everything, as if he's saved up and bought his ticket and sitting way up in the stand somewhere. That's literally where he goes and sits and looks to see what the view is. That level of detail, and goes into every restroom and looks to see where the grime is, and looks at every blade of grass and thinks, why isn't this Augusta? And let's make it so. And so we're very, very fortunate that he continues to invest. I say that Newgarden is my favorite because one of my best buds growing up, elementary school through high school, still friends to this day, obviously, is the president of Penske Racing. And so whoever Tim Cindric is calling the race strategy for the day, that's my favorite driver. It happens to be Joseph Newgarden.
Well, I'll wish him good luck in the race.
Thank you.
So going back to some of those technologies, at Davos, your panel was about green manufacturing, which is production with increased efficiency, reduction in use of natural resources. Do you think this method of energy reduction and efficiency is important for Indiana?
Yeah, absolutely. It's important for every state, by the way. And for a state like Indiana, where we're so heavy in the intensity of advanced manufacturing and ag, I mean, they've been with us since the very beginning. We're the #1 per capita manufacturing state in America, and produce more steel, 28% of the nation's steel, the #1. And you know, you go through all these resources that are very, not just capital intensive, but require a lot of power. and the industries of the future that will. Talk about Stellantis and Samsung SDI building the first battery factory, their first joint venture in battery factory in America. That takes a lot of power. And so in order to meet certain standards and goals, you do have to get creative, and part of their package with NIPSCO and Duke, the two utility companies that were hugely supportive in this project and very competitive. This is a very competitive part of a package, the cost of energy and the source of energy. You know, they were able to put together a very attractive package that uses solar. And we were the beneficiary of Doral Energy renewables that is building right now, as it is today. It's right now the largest solar farm in America. That's about 13,000 acres up in, it straddles 2 counties actually. And it's so often the case that when you're talking to these big investors, big capital projects, the cost and the source are important. And renewables, for all the obvious reasons, have to be part of that portfolio. We have to make sure we have the, you know, a baseline and a base load that can keep the lights on. And that's why Indiana's kind of taken a all the above approach to where we can draw from through MISO, through this regional distributor. We can draw from all the different sources. And as more solar or wind come online, that adjusts coal or gas or hydrogen or nuclear. And, you know, with all the innovations that are coming, the smaller mobile nuclear sources could be very exciting as well, and hydrogen, et cetera. And so we really have what's reliable, affordable, and resilient. And that's going to become increasingly based on innovation. And it has to be for all those sources, by the way, not just what we consider renewable or offer as renewable.
So, I mean, you mentioned coal, and Indiana still does generate a large portion of its energy from coal, but the rest of the world, including countries like India that still rely heavily on it, have agreed to phase down coal use. Are you supportive of that idea? Do you want to get coal out of the energy mix for Indiana? And do you have a date for when you might want to see that happen, if so?
No, I want to provide our water and air, the particulate matter in the air is cleaner than it's ever been. And since the Clean Air and Water Acts were put forward in the 70s. And what we want to make sure is we're not in that position that some of these nations that were at Davos, by the way, who said we were on our way to phasing out completely coal. And now we're completely back on coal because of global events that maybe seemed far away at the time, but not so far. And so what we want to do is make sure what we're doing is clean, affordable, and reliable. And coal is part of that mix. And we want to just make sure we're doing it as cleanly as possible. And by the way, as I was alluding to, there can continue to be innovations that come out that make that so. True for gas as well.
I think, I mean, earlier you said these countries that are having to switch back to coal, you said, in your words, not theirs, are doing it regretfully a little bit. You know, they don't want to switch back to coal.
Right.
I think it's pretty clear that coal, especially even compared to natural gas, is much more polluting, emits much more carbon, and is not necessarily as cost effective. Do you still think it's a good idea to pursue coal projects, or do you want to, I mean, even transition them to natural gas or renewables that are going to be cheaper and cleaner?
I think what the world's finding is the market decides. And my word, not theirs, as you pointed out, regretfully going back, that's reality. And it's great to have goals. And it's good for us too as well. And we want to become very balanced. And we are one of the fastest states that the market is because of innovation, the market is taking us there. And so now we're one of the top 5 states in America for clean, renewable energy sources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Behind some really big states. I mean, Texas, Florida, New York. So again, the market is taking us there. And I'm going to continue to embrace those steps to make sure that our portfolio keeps the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
And especially going into a really hot summer. And I don't find myself in the position of many countries in Europe. And by the way, you brought up India, and they've set some goals, and or China. And if you look at, let's go to the source, they're developing. And so obviously they looked at America and they said, you guys developed, and we need to as well. And so goals, but right now you don't want to shut the power off
right
on someone's home or business.
And I think that's certainly true, that we wouldn't want to shut the power off. But you're saying, let the free market decide. But you did recently sign a bill that would prevent local governments from requiring energy saving materials or components in the construction of new infrastructure. Do you think that this might be at odds with that goal of increasing energy efficiency and letting the market decide? If the market is deciding we don't want to go with natural gas anymore, we think wind power is the way to go, we think this energy efficient method is the way to go, are you worried that this sort of legislation could limit the ability of the market to decide?
Not based on the facts or experience, as they are in the state of Indiana. If I had any second thoughts, I would be responding to the market. But we are growing in terms of renewables and clean, as defined through a renewable perspective, sources. And we'll continue to work with locals on those projects. What's happening in reality with a lot of projects is kind of what I described with Stellantis and Samsung SDI, and that is, if they're going to go somewhere, they're going to work with the utilities for certain sources. And as long as we keep offering the cleanest air and water, when I say that, I'm talking about 97%, 99%. Some of this dispute comes from an area where we believe is blowing over from Chicago. And so, when you talk about the density of that urban area and where we have an issue, albeit it's small, but that's part of the map that kind of stands out. And you go, what's different about that area? And then you look at the 3rd biggest economy in the country right across the border and the lake. And so where is the true source? And so I'm very pleased with the progress that Indiana has made and continues to make. And I'm very excited about alternative sources and innovation. Hydrogen, this will be part of a discussion Thursday and Friday, by the way, is just how we get at the sources, be it methane, be it, in ag or manufacturing or in every sector. And it's not just about Indiana and not just about the heartland, but how these innovations can be applied here and everywhere else.
Mm-hmm. I think we might be running a little short on time here. I know you got a pretty busy schedule, so I don't want to take up too much more time, but we do appreciate you joining us, and we're excited to see how the summit goes.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, and I hope we can do it again. And I need to get you out to the Indianapolis 500 before I leave office.
Next year. I'll book my ticket.
Done.
Book my ticket now.
I've got it on record.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Have a good one.